Hello again. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the last video we did the monochromatic color scheme. It is probably the easiest one to understand. You just pick one hue, pick your favorite hue, and you're just doing different versions of it. But I did say in that video that I would show you how to use watercolor if you want to use watercolor as your material. Of course, you can stick with markers or colored pencil. Again, the material that you use is not really as important as just understanding these three classic color schemes. So I've got watercolors. These aren't that different from what you would buy, just like a Crayola set, something that you probably used in elementary school that's easy to get at, Walmart or even grocery stores. The difference between this and that is that this is a little bit more pigmented um, and a little bit more less transparent. But there are sets of these that are a little bit they're shaped, the actual container is shaped differently in the classroom on the front table. So if you decide that you want to try your hand at using watercolor, it can be a really fast way to work. So I've got a cup of water. I've got kind of a fairly it's not like a teeny tiny brush, it's kind of like a fatter brush. And that works really good with watercolor because you're not trying to be precise, you're trying to spread the color. And I watered it down, and then you notice that I kind of dabbed it on the paper towel. The water will also activate your marker. So you see that right there. Maybe you can see that, but it bled a little bit. And you don't need much because this Bristol paper will do fine with a little bit of watercolor pigment, but you don't want it to be super wet. So you do have kind of a mop-like brush, if that makes sense. It's not a super fine point. I'll show you what I mean by that. That is really great for doing like detailed work. You're not trying to do anything detailed. You're just trying to spread the color around. So that's why I picked this brush. You can find inexpensive brushes. You can even use something as simple as a cotton swab. But again, it's going to take a little bit more time. Now, if you see that you have a lot of liquid on your paper, then take your napkin and press it down and soak some of it up. And it left a little bit of the pattern. If you like that, you can use that. If you want to get rid of that pattern, so I'm getting some water and then I'm touching and getting the excess off. And this is just the blue. I don't have a ton of choices with this particular um, pad of watercolors, but I'm sticking with blue because we're doing monochromatic. Now, if I want to make this blue look different, then I'm going to touch into the black. And it's a good idea to have like a little place where you can do swatches. So this is definitely a little bit darker than what I had before, and I'm going to put it down here. You don't have to do this if you're using marker or colored pencil. You don't have to use watercolor in the background. I just wanted to show you both techniques because I didn't want to make a separate video for watercolor. This is a blue with a lot of black in it. And you see just how quickly this goes on. And you don't need to keep dipping, the brush. And it's up to you, if you want to see the brush marks, then the more dry the brush becomes as the water is soaking up the paper, the more of the little hairs of the brush you see. If you don't like that, then dip your brush into some water and clean it up. But whenever I see the shine of the water, I'll take my napkin and I'll blot that up because I don't want to wrinkle up my paper. Okay, so I dipped into the blue and I dipped into the black. I dipped black, blue, and into the black again, and that's what makes this stormy blue color. Again, monochromatic is just you're doing variations on the same hue of blue, but you are changing them by adding only white or black. You can't use any other hue. So black, blue, black. And then I'm actually just going to, I dabbed it into the water one more time just to thin it out. I don't want the pigment to be so dark on the paper that it obviously looks super different from the marker. And I like leaving the edges sort of irregular, not making it super tight. I like that, or super straight. If you do happen to get too much pigment in one area, it's fine. Blot it with your paper towel. Knock it down with some water. Now you'll notice that in most watercolor palettes, you don't have white. So in place of white, use your water. So use more water, less blue pigment, or even just use the water straight and then wet the marker. And even your cheap markers should be water soluble, right? Because markers that they use for kids, like in elementary classrooms, they want you to be able to wipe it up, or be able to clean it up with water. So you can use regular old Crayola markers, get a cup of plain water, and you can get a watercolor effect from really inexpensive markers. All right, I'm gonna let this dry, and then I will show you how you might want to pop out some of these shapes with with your pens. But you'll notice, I'll hold the paper up. Can you see kind of how it's creased? So that's just with, I was being very careful about how much water I put. So make sure that you're also being careful, and you are going to crinkle your paper just a little bit. Let it completely dry in the open air, and then you can put like a piece of tracing paper on top to protect it, and you can put some heavy books and it'll flatten it out. But let it dry first, or the paper, whatever you stack on top of this, is going to stick. Okay?